Right now on Morning News Now, enough is enough. In a rare joint statement, several UN agencies and aid groups call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, saying the situation there is, quote, horrific. Israel saying any deal would require the release of all hostages held by Hamas, as overnight its military carried out one of its most intense bombings of the Gaza Strip yet. Earlier, Secretary Blinken concluded his diplomatic tour of the region by meeting with his Turkish counterpart.
We're working, as I said, very aggressively on getting more humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and we have very concrete ways of doing that. And I think you'll see in the days ahead that assistance can expand in significant ways.
We're on the ground with the latest on the deadly conflict. Taking the stand, former President Trump is testifying in court today in his civil fraud trial. What to expect in the case that could shake his business empire. Leaving a mark more than 2 months after those deadly wildfires ravaged Maui, health officials are warning about the traumatic impact of the disaster. But we're learning about this new mental health crisis. Plus, Coding 101. We'll take a look at how one prison program is giving inmates a second chance by teaching them programming.
Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Monday. Good to have you back with us.
I know.
After
Thank
a
you
fun
very
little
much.
trip to Colorado.
Yes, that's right. I know. Back at my alma mater. It was a great weekend. How was your weekend?
It was very nice,
yeah,
too.
There you go.
I'm Joe Fryer.
I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started with that ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is wrapped up meeting with Turkish leaders this morning, his latest stop on his diplomatic tour of the region.
It comes after Blinken made 2 unexpected stops over the weekend, one in Baghdad, the other in the West Bank. During those meetings, the Secretary of State sought to negotiate a temporary pause in fighting and also emphasized the importance of including Palestinian leaders in any talks about how to move past this war.
If you project forward to the future, what we all agree is that in defining that future, in shaping that future for Gaza, for the West Bank, and ultimately for a Palestinian state, Palestinian voices have to be at the center of that.
Israel continues to carry out intense airstrikes in Gaza, saying it wants to, quote, wipe Hamas off the map. Israeli military officials say troops have completely encircled Gaza City, severing the region in 2, creating a northern and southern Gaza. Israeli forces are expected to enter Gaza City in force within the next 48 hours, escalating the situation on the ground. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from Ashdod, Israel, with the latest. So, Jay, let's start with Secretary Blinken's surprise visit to the West Bank and to Baghdad. What were Blinken's goals in meeting with Palestinian and Iraqi Palestinian leaders, and what are we learning about his meeting today in Turkey?
Yeah, and let's start in the West Bank. Thanks, Joe. And the message was very clear. He was saying that Palestinians cannot be forcibly removed from Gaza, that they need to stay there and establish their place. He talked about ending some of the violence in the West Bank, concern over Palestinians who have been facing some extremist violence there from Israeli settlers, and spoke candidly about the Palestinian Authority having some control in a new government in Gaza. So trying to shape what things may look like after this war is over, though no one thinks we're anywhere close there. His stop in Baghdad, obviously, was to speak with U.S. troops on the ground there, survey the situation, and relay his concerns about violence spreading across that region and concerns about the violence actually turning into separate fronts in this war. So that was a part of the major discussion there. And then in Turkey, a place that has been more vocal about its opposition to this war than many other countries. They have said there's got to be an immediate ceasefire. They've ended all diplomatic relations with Israel. He was there to try and ease the tensions if possible and discuss and further push the idea that America has for these humanitarian pauses to allow more aid in, to allow more of those foreign nationals out. And so he was sharing that message as well. In an area, by the way, that wasn't real receptive to that message. There were protests leading into Blinken's visit. They didn't want to see him there.
Jay, let's talk about that joint statement overnight. Comes from 18 UN agencies and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, calling for an immediate ceasefire from Israel. What else did that statement say, and how is Israel responding to this?
Yeah, Israel has said repeatedly, and you talked about this, Joe, that they are going to continue this fight until Hamas is gone, that they are going to continue the strikes and continue to seek out and destroy, their words, Hamas, where they are. This report from the UN talked about the shock and horror. That's part of the report. At the spiraling number of lives lost and torn apart, rockets traumatizing families is part of another section of this report. And they focused for a bit in this report on the lives lost when it comes to UN workers, more than in any other conflict in the history of the organization on the ground in Gaza. And then they did stress that there's got to be more aid moving in, a more steady supply of trucks bringing food, water, medicines, and medical supplies. And that's got to be established immediately. As you guys talked about in the intro to all of this, they closed it by saying enough is enough in Gaza.
And real quickly, Jay, we know in Gaza the bombings are still intensifying. The health ministry in the Hamas-controlled Strip says at least 45 people were killed in a strike at the Al-Maghazi refugee camp. What do we know about that?
Well, the IDF says that they're still investigating that explosion, and they haven't really responded to how or why it's happened, though they continue to say that Hamas is hiding amongst civilians. They're using them as shields, and that's created some problems with their strategy. They have surrounded Gaza City, as you talked about, expect to be inside in the next 48 hours. And what they expect to find there is a lot of the operational structures, a lot of the facilities they are using to organize their fight against Israel. And they hope to eliminate those facilities as well as they move in.
And CIA Director William Burns also arriving in Israel today. All right, Jay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. He's a senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities and the host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Good morning. Thank you, as always, for joining us. So the Palestinian ambassador to the UK spoke out following Blinken's meeting with the Palestinian president. He called out the U.S. for not taking a strong enough stance for Palestinians. Let's listen to some of that.
We need to see the U.S. playing the role of an honest mediator, not adopting the Israeli narrative and the Israeli line, given how hysteric and, with the genocidal rhetoric coming out of Tel Aviv right now. We needed a grown-up in the room, and that is the U.S. Unfortunately, we haven't heard that, and that's why we did not come up with a joint statement.
So the U.S. has stood firm in its allyship with Israel. What do you make of these comments as Blinken meets with leaders in Turkey and in the region?
Well, certainly you have to look at the results so far. I mean, we have to be honest, and U.S. diplomatic efforts have not really seemed to have affected much of the Israeli positions and the Israeli actions. Some of those you were just showing on the screen there a second ago of some of the carnage going on in Gaza just kind of reminds me of our operations in the Middle East. And we're, when we have to fight in terms of areas where there's lots of civilians, we have these much more surgical strikes, and they have collateral damage, but they are targeted. These are, you see entire sections of the city being leveled. And I think that the United States has been trying to get Israel to be more targeted and less, using a sledgehammer to get a fly, so to speak. And it doesn't seem that we've had much success. So you can certainly understand some of the positions of the Palestinian people, because they are now dying. Actually, over 10,000 is the number now, in addition to the UN support deaths. So you can understand why they would be feeling that way.
Also, Blinken is continuing to issue warnings, while he's on this trip to Iran, other forces supporting Hamas leaders. Over the weekend, I want to play a little bit of what he said about that.
It was very important to send a very clear message to anyone who might seek to take advantage of the conflict in Gaza to threaten our personnel here or anywhere else in the region. Don't do it. I made very clear that the attacks, the threats coming from militia that are aligned with Iran are totally unacceptable, and we will take every necessary step to protect our people.
So we're, of course, seeing Blinken, seeing the U.S. play this mediator role, but then while also having to make comments like that, trying to defend troops in the region and trying to stop this conflict from getting wider. How is that duality working?
Yeah, look, it is absolutely should be our overriding priority to prevent this war from escalating beyond the Gaza Strip. And that includes Hezbollah in the north, and it definitely includes Iran in the region, because once you have that, then war can take on a nature of its own. The issue is we've sent, of course, 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, now a nuclear-powered submarine, and, of course, lots of new air defense capabilities to try and keep our troops there safe. But we have to also consider, look, those troops are not doing anything but right now putting a big struggle for the United States to defend, because that could be the cause that draws us in if any of those troops are killed. I think we should consider the possibility of withdrawing those troops to more defensible positions out of the region so that we don't have to strike and get sucked into a war.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Davis, thank you so much for joining us, as always.
In Washington, the battle over aid to Israel remains a contentious issue among lawmakers. Top House Republicans spent the weekend defending billions in proposed cuts to the IRS, part of a standalone Israel aid package. The House voted last week mostly along party lines to pass the bill, which does not include any funding for Ukraine in its ongoing war with Russia. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now. So, Ryan, the standalone House bill would provide more than $14 billion of aid to Israel. Senate Democrats say it has no chance of passing. If somehow it did, President Biden has said he would veto it. So what are we hearing now from the new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, about where things stand when it comes to all this aid overseas?
Well, Joe, he seems pretty insistent that any sort of funding package from Israel is going to have, for Israel, I should say, is going to have to be offset with spending cuts in other areas. He's targeted this plan to expand the number of IRS agents in order to collect taxes that the federal government needs. And that's something that senators have basically said that they're not interested in. So it's likely the Senate will pretty much ignore the House package and then just send back a package of their own that could include funding for other areas. But that will be the big question when it heads back to the House. How will Speaker Johnson respond? And he's already previewing how that may happen. Take a listen.
What they don't like is that in the House, we're trying to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources. We offset that spending. Instead of printing new dollars or borrowing it from another nation to send over to fulfill our obligations and help our ally, we want to pay for it. What a concept. We're trying to change how Washington works. It's more important to protect Israel right now than it is to hire more IRS agents.
Now, it's important to point out that the Congressional Budget Office actually said that cutting those IRS agents would actually increase the deficit, not make it better. So that's something that's up for debate right now. But as it stands right now, Joe, it seems very unlikely that the bill that passed the House is the bill that will ultimately become law.
So, Ryan, we know the president, Senate Democrats, they say they support this broader $106 billion aid package, which would help both Israel and Ukraine, plus funding for U.S. border operations. I'm going to try to tap your expertise on Capitol Hill here. What do you think it's going to take to get something that both the House and the Senate will pass?
I really think the key, Joe, is going to be some sort of policy change as it relates to border security. That seems to be an area where you could get conservatives to get on board with something along those lines, because it's something that they really care about. And while you've seen some House Republicans in particular be reluctant to continue funding for Ukraine, they are insistent that changes seriously happen along the southern border. And while the administration, Senate Democrats have been interested in funding increases for border security, it's the policy changes that conservatives really care about. And there could be an openness in the White House to policy changes as well. So that'll be the key negotiating tactic I think you'll see in the Senate in the coming weeks. Whether or not it's a package that can get enough support in the House is something that remains an open question.
All right. Ryan Nobles, good to have you with us this morning. Thank you.
Well, former President Trump is set to take the stand today in the ongoing New York civil fraud trial against the Trump Organization.
Trump and members of his family are accused of committing fraud by inflating the value of their business assets to their advantage. They've pleaded not guilty in the case. New York Attorney General Letitia James is seeking $250 million in damages. NBC News Now legal analyst Angela Senadella joins us now with more on what we can expect. Not pleaded guilty there. Apologies. They've basically denied any wrongdoing in the case, since this is not a criminal matter. What are you watching for as Trump takes the stand today? How can he help himself in his defense?
Well, look, I think it's unpredictable, as Trump on the stand always is, but I do think there's something that can help him. And as you said, he has already determined that there was liability. So there has been liability determined. The entire point of the trial is just to see how much liability, how much damages. Now, that directly relates to the loss of the victims. However much money the victims have lost should theoretically be however much money Donald Trump and his family should pay. But at this point, if the banks are the victims and they haven't lost money, he should focus on that. He should focus on the complicitness of the banks, how they agreed on these valuations.
Let's talk a little bit about what we've actually seen happening in the courtroom, which has partially to do with this contentious sort of relationship between Trump and the judge here, and also this gag order actually now extended to the lawyers involved as well. Walk us through what we've seen so far and also the impact that could have as this goes on.
Well, remember, this is not a jury trial. The judge is the only person who will determine the extent of these damages and whether or not the business licenses could be lost forever. They could never do business in New York State again. So to that extent, he has launched these bombs at the judge, declaring that he is deranged, declaring that he is biased, and these gag orders are based on him allegedly attacking the staff verbally. So this is all related. There is one man determining his future, and that man is the one that he is enraged.
There's another person we're keeping an eye on later this week. We expect Ivanka Trump to testify. She had tried to at least get out of it, at least for now, but so far that hasn't worked for her. What can we expect when she takes the stand in this case?
We expect to see exactly what we saw with Donald Jr. and Eric Trump on the stand last week, which is it wasn't me. My role in the company and hers was more marketing, did not directly have to do with any of the preparation of the financial statements. And so thus, we expect her to just say that she didn't know what was happening and that it was the accountants.
Angela Sanadella, thank you so much.
Turning now to the war in Ukraine, NBC News has learned that U.S. and European officials have quietly broached the topic of peace negotiations with Ukraine's government. That's according to a current senior U.S. official and a former senior U.S. official. It comes after Ukraine's top general said the war had reached a stalemate. Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker sat down with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to discuss where he stands on the issue.
Hello there, Joe and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Here's what he had to say about NBC News reporting that officials from the U.S. and Europe have begun talking to the Ukrainian government about possible peace negotiations with Russia.
A lot of different voices around us. I heard a lot of different voices and emotions and without any concretic and propositions, a lot of different things. But as for me, I don't have, for today, I don't have any relations with Russians. And they know my position. That is the position of my country. That is the position of our people. We don't want to make any dialogue with terrorists. And the President of the United States and Congress, bipartisan support, all these people, they know that I am not ready to speak with the terrorists because their word is nothing. Nothing. We can't trust terrorists because terrorists always come back. Always come back. Maybe that in some circles, maybe some countries, I'm sure that there are some countries on the level of intelligence or advisors of leaders, maybe they speak with Russia, maybe they, think how to manage everything. But till that moment that Russia staying on our territory, we can't manage it. They have to go out from our territory. Only after that, the world can switch on diplomacy.
You can see my full interview and a lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4.
All right, Kristen Welker, thank you so much. Let's bring in Ambassador John Erbs for more on this. He is the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and the senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Ambassador, always great to have you with us. Thank you very much. So in that interview, Zelensky, as we just heard part of this, pushed back on suggestions that Ukraine and Russia had reached a stalemate. But those remarks are in contrast with those made by the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces last week, who essentially did say that we are at the stalemate. What do you think here? Are Ukraine and Russia at an impasse?
It's true that the Ukrainian counteroffensive did not do nearly as much as people were expecting, but frankly, they should not have been expecting them to do more because we did not arm them in a way that would enable that success. But point of fact, Ukraine has made small gains on land, and at sea, they've driven the Russian Black Sea Fleet out of Sevastopol. So they've had serious gains at sea. It's very unfortunate if in this leak that the United States and Europe is talking to Ukraine about negotiating.
Oh, it looks like the ambassador may have frozen on us. Unfortunately, if we got him, we'll continue with him. All right, looks like we have lost him. So we are going to get you a check on your Morning News Now forecast.
It's a soggy start to the week for many, from the Pacific Northwest all the way through the Midwest and Ohio River Valley. So let's get a check on your Morning News Now forecast.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is tracking the wet weather for us. Good morning, Michelle.
Absolutely. Hi there, guys. And we are looking pretty quiet this week. We do have a couple big weather stories, though. One being we have some soggy start out this work week, very Monday weather. As we look to the Pacific Northwest, we have some rain, some higher elevation snow, even notice a little bit of lightning. That's sort of indicating how much energy this system has. It's waves and waves of moisture that's moving onshore, and we're seeing that once again today. Then a little further to the east, we have some moisture moving through the northern plains, also the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, some lightning there as well. And that will be the case as we go throughout today, too, because we're going to see some showers and thunderstorms in portions of the upper Midwest. Otherwise, look, we're pretty quiet. And then the next big story is we're looking at some pretty big November warmth. So let's start out with the rain first, because we're looking at heavy rain. This is radar right now. So you can see that rain falling. We have some brighter colors. That's telling us where that heavy rain is falling. The reds, the oranges, the yellows. So that's extending from Washington to Oregon to Northern California, back into portions of the Rockies. But this is much needed rain. So that's good news, even though it's kind of a damper on the start of the work week. It was a damper on the weekend as well. This is what we're looking at in terms of the story. We're looking at the system moving onshore, and then we're looking at heavy rain. We're looking at mountain snow. We're also looking at gusty winds. Winds could gust near 60 miles per hour at times as we go throughout today. So that's going to add sort of to that gloomy weather as we go throughout the day. Then the system is dissipating as it's moving into the Rockies. We're looking at a few scattered rain and snow showers lingering on Tuesday. And look at that snow. That's where we're seeing that blue. So that's a higher elevation snow. And we're looking at wind alerts, too, gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Where you see the blue here, that's where we're looking at wind advisories. So places like Portland, Eugene, Love Lake, down to Lake Tahoe, and also Las Vegas, we're looking at some wind advisories. Here's the rainfall totals. Again, we're expecting heavy rain once again, beneficial, but still kind of a damper. We're looking at, especially along the coast here, a little bit further inland as we get towards the northern Rockies as well. Those brighter colors showing us where we're expecting the most rainfall. And this is through the next couple of days. Snowfall, looking at high amounts as well. That's the bright colors, the pinks, the purple, showing us where that heavy snow is falling. So lots throughout the higher ranges of the Cascade into portions of the northern Rockies as well. And then we have some rain further off to the east. So we're talking the northern plains, the Great Lakes. You could see some rain and even some snow in spots. We're looking at minor snow, but still looking at some cold weather up there. The rest of the story, we're looking at record warmth across the south into the eastern part of the nation. Back to you guys.
All right, Michelle Grossman, thank you so much.
Sure.
We are now going to head back to Ambassador John Erbst for more on what is happening with Ukraine and Russia, who we just lost for one moment. He's the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and the senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Ambassador, thank you very much for being here. So we were just discussing a moment ago how there's this kind of question over has a stalemate been reached here or not, given these kind of conflicting conversations and comments between the commander-in-chief and then President Zelensky. Just quickly, your thoughts on that.
Okay, on land, it's largely a stalemate, but Ukraine has made some small progress. At sea, the Ukrainians have driven the Russian Black Sea Fleet out of Sevastopol, so that's a major defeat for Russia.
And Ambassador, we just heard President Zelensky's response to NBC reporting that U.S. and European officials have begun talking to his government about possible peace negotiations with Russia. He told Kristen Welker he has no relations with Russia and that they are not ready for a dialogue. So what do you think? Are peace negotiations at all possible at this point?
No, and it's a tactical mistake, a serious tactical mistake for the administration and for the Europeans to leak any such conversations. Putin still thinks he can win in Ukraine, meaning take political control of the country. He thinks he can win because he thinks the United States and the Europeans are going to get tired of this war. And reports like this simply confirm Putin in that belief. Instead of telling Ukraine it must negotiate, it should be sending Ukraine the weapons that we still refuse to send, like the longer-range ATACMS, which would enable Ukraine to make very serious progress on land.
Ambassador, quickly, before I let you go, I do want to ask you about something else that came up during this interview. President Zelensky, he invited former President Trump to Ukraine. This is in response to Trump having said that he could end the war between Russia and Ukraine in 24 hours. That's what he had said. Well, President Zelensky told Kristen Welker that he would need just 24 minutes to explain why Trump could not manage this war. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think it's going to take to end this war?
There's a certain amount of showmanship on Trump's part, and for that matter, on Zelensky's part. So here he's parrying the sorts of statements that Trump has been making. I don't take this too seriously. But as for how to end this war, Putin thinks he can conquer Ukraine. He thinks the West will give up. And so what we need to do is make it clear to Putin he cannot do that. And we do that by sending Ukraine all the assistance it needs. The more advanced weapons we still refuse to send, and maintaining our strong material support. For that to happen, the Republicans in the House need to understand that the U.S. has vital interests at stake, because if Putin wins in Ukraine, he's coming next for the Baltic states. So the smart way to defend America and its interests is to help Ukraine defeat Putin.
Ambassador Herbst, as always, thank you for joining us.
Coming up on what definitely feels like a Monday morning, we're kicking off a big week in politics, starting with the races to watch in tomorrow's elections.
We're also taking a look at what the polls about the state of the GOP presidential race say ahead of Wednesday's big debate. That's all next.
It's election eve, and even though it's an odd year as opposed to an even one, we're keeping an eye on some big races around this country. This morning, we're focusing on 4 states: Kentucky, Mississippi, Ohio, and Virginia. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster joins us now from the campaign trail in Kentucky, home to a big gubernatorial race. Shaq, good morning.
Good morning. Look, I know we talk about 2024 so much that it's a bit weird for us to be talking about some key races here in 2023. But tomorrow, millions of Americans will be heading to the polls to vote in elections that could offer some major takeaways.
Key statewide elections across the country Tuesday, offering important indicators for 2024, with both parties testing campaign messages. Increased early voting in Ohio, voters deciding on marijuana legalization and whether Ohio will become the latest conservative state to enshrine abortion rights in its constitution.
I don't think it's anybody's business but the families to make their own reproductive choices.
This amendment just goes much, much too far.
In Virginia,
it's not about politics, it's about results.
Governor Glenn Youngkin's political power and push for a 15-week abortion ban are on the line as voters determine control of the state legislature. Republicans hitting President Biden, crime and education. Democrats messaging on threats to abortion access.
To pass a new ban on abortion isn't just radical, it's dangerous.
Competitive races for governor in 2 states where Donald Trump won big in 2020. Mississippi might get its first gubernatorial runoff as Democrat Brandon Presley, a second cousin of the rock icon, is giving incumbent Republican Governor Tate Reeves a fight. As political experts call Kentucky's race a potential 2024 bellwether.
Are you ready to win?
Since the turn of the century, the party that's won Kentucky's governor's mansion has gone on to win the presidency the following year.
God bless you and God bless Kentucky.
Attorney General Daniel Cameron using Trump's endorsement and his close ties to Mitch McConnell to fight Governor Andy Beshear's re-election.
Explain why this is such a battle for you.
Well, look, we feel very excited. I think we need new leadership in this state, and I agree with President Trump that Andy Beshear's been a disaster.
Testing whether a Democratic governor's popularity can outweigh the party's unpopular leader.
Do you feel that there's national headwinds here when you're being connected to Joe Biden?
Well, listen, this race isn't about who's in the White House. It's what's going on in the houses across Kentucky.
And if this all has a familiar feeling, well, that's because it is very familiar. Just like the midterms, you heard there, Democrats doing what they can to localize these races as much as possible, while Republicans are trying to nationalize these races. That didn't work for Republicans largely in the midterms. But look, it's a new backdrop. You see President Biden's approval ratings, they are lower. And we are now talking about a new war in the Middle East, guys.
Just a taste of what's to come in the next year. All right, Shaq, thank you so much.
And we'll stay on politics as the Iowa Republican presidential caucuses are just over 2 months away. Former President Trump still holds a commanding lead over the field. We've got new polling and a big takeaway. An overwhelming majority of likely Iowa Republican voters believe it's, quote, extremely important for the GOP candidates to show they can defeat President Joe Biden. NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray joins us now with a look at all these new poll numbers. Mark, thank you very much for joining us on what is a busy week for us here at NBC News Debate Week. So NBC News just released this poll. Our partner, the Des Moines Register, that was our partner on this polling. How are the Republican candidates stacking up with potential caucus goers? And what are they looking for in a candidate? What specifics did we get here?
Yeah, Savannah. So, yes, our poll shows Donald Trump with a 27-point lead over his nearest competition, according to our NBC News Des Moines Register MediaCom poll. That's higher than the lead that Donald Trump ended up holding in August. But our poll did something different this time around. We released what we think are, we tested 9 different candidate qualities. And the most popular, as you ended up mentioning, 74% said it's extremely important to have a Republican presidential candidate who can defeat Joe Biden. So you end up having that. Then right below that, 54% believing in a strong American role in world affairs, 51% who's saying it's extremely important to be the adult in the room, and then 50% who want a president who can work with the opposing party.
Mark, also another kind of interesting thing out of this, a big headline, 2 categories in this poll. Nikki Haley has been able to kind of close this gap with Trump. What do the numbers show?
Yeah, and so I mentioned that Donald Trump overwhelmingly has a very large lead overall, but among the Iowa Republican caucus goers who end up saying that being an adult in the room is very important or working with the opposing party, Trump's lead is much smaller, and Nikki Haley is in a close position, kind of highlighting what might be 2 vulnerabilities for Donald Trump, but it's still important to note that he has big leads on the other attributes and other presidential qualities we asked in the poll.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, we're also getting new poll numbers from some of the most important battleground states. Where do President Biden and former President Trump stand with voters in those states?
Yeah, so general election, but polls from the New York Times and Siena College ended up surveying 6 top presidential battleground states and showing that in 5 of them, Donald Trump ends up leading President Biden, while Biden leads in just 1 in the swing state of Wisconsin. So again, it's important to note it's very early in the cycle. We're going to have so many different twists and turns. We have Donald Trump taking the stand today in New York, but it is kind of a snapshot, at least right now, showing some of the vulnerabilities that President Biden has as he faces re-election.
Absolutely. I'm going to get some new numbers here. Mark Murray, thank you so much.
Now to what's making international headlines. South Korea is announcing plans and a date for its first ever spy satellite launch.
NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now. Hey, Molly, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. Joe is right. We are starting in South Korea. Of course, they want a closer look at their northern neighbor. So the government there announced its plans to launch its first domestically built spy satellite at the end of the month to get a better up close and personal look at North Korea. The plan was announced shortly after North Korea failed to launch their own reconnaissance satellite last month. Now, moving to Germany over the weekend, police arrested a man and rescued his 4-year-old daughter after an apparent hostage incident. A 35-year-old man who was suspected of being armed drove his vehicle through the gates of a very busy Hamburg airport. He was quickly arrested, and his daughter was unharmed. Police say it may be related to a custody incident. And finally, after thousands of signatures were collected to rescue Britain's loneliest sheep, her name is Fiona, there is now debate about where she will live. She was photographed at the base of a steep cliff in the Scottish Highlands 2 years ago. Her fleece was all overgrown, and over the weekend, finally she was rescued by 5 brave farmers. She also got a much-needed haircut. Now, the BBC reports this morning she is currently in a secret location while her permanent home is being decided. You guys, lots of opinions from activists and from farmers about where Fiona should live. I'll send it back to you.
Fascinating. All right, Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly. And coming up, there is much more. Morning News Now after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, some LGBTQ couples are turning to GoFundMe campaigns to cover their surrogacy costs when they look to start a family, oftentimes because their fertility procedures are not covered by insurance the same way that they are for straight couples. NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo takes a look at what's behind the trend.
While many soon-to-be parents are setting up baby registries,
we set our goal at $50,000 for the GoFundMe because ultimately that is
an average, give or take, of what insurance companies would be covering for that IVF treatment.
Kyle and Jack Morelli are joining many other gay couples setting up crowdfunding sites, looking for help with the estimated $150,000 to $200,000 cost of having a baby through surrogacy.
I'm the one who proposed. Jack was very surprised. He did not know it was coming.
Wow.
You did? That's news to me.
The Long Island, New York couple, together for 10 years, got married and bought a home. Having a biological child is the next step in their plan.
We wanted kids, we wanted, that type of life.
They expected insurance to cover the creation of their embryos, included in most fertility coverage. Then their insurance company told them they didn't qualify.
What went through your mind? We felt discriminated against. We kind of felt alienated in a weird way, in a way that I feel like it's been a very long time since we did as a gay man.
A spokesperson for their insurer, Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield, telling NBC News in a statement it, quote, covers fertility services as mandated by New York state law. Many insurance companies rely on definitions of infertility similar to the CDC's to determine coverage. It classifies infertility as the inability to get pregnant after a year of unprotected sex, a diagnosis the Morellis would never qualify for. Fertility rights attorney Molly O'Brien says it leaves out not just many same-sex couples, but transgender and single individuals as well.
Do you think it's discriminatory?
It's hugely discriminatory and it absolutely needs to change. This is a national issue.
Right now, 21 states have laws requiring coverage for couples diagnosed as infertile. 16 of those states also mandate IVF coverage. And many of those states, including New York, rely on infertility definitions that exclude many LGBTQ+ people.
They're not going to change unless the employers who are purchasing the insurance policy make them change.
Jack and Kyle already invested $65,000 and expect surrogacy to cost another $180,000. They're not giving up, though, taking a loan against their home and second jobs to fund their journey. And it's motivated them to advocate for others.
There's a stigma that two men can't raise a child together or that men are incapable of raising children on their own. And it's something that we want to stop.
Stephen Romo, NBC News.
In Hawaii, West Maui officially reopened to tourists this month, more than 2 months after wildfires ravaged the island. Still, the trauma for the people of Lahaina remains. They're haunted by the images and sounds from the deadly fires, and healthcare professionals there say it's creating a mental health crisis. Dr. Jennifer Hartstein, a family and clinical psychologist, joins us now for more on this. Good to have you with us. So, living through a disaster like the Maui wildfires can be very traumatic, and we are just seeing so many natural disasters plague so many communities in recent years. Tell us about the effect a natural disaster like this can have on your mental health and what symptoms survivors might be experiencing.
It's a really important thing to think about. What some research has found is that in areas 3 years after there's a natural disaster, there's an increase in mental health issues of up to 23%. So we know that there is a direct correlation between mental health problems that arise out of these things. Most of it is a traumatic reaction: despair, anxiety, worry, hypervigilance, this survivor's guilt for some people who may have lost family members, lost pets, lost their homes. So all of that contributes to depression, anxiety, feelings of suicide, all of those things.
So, and let's talk about suicide, because that is a major concern. A 12-year study found suicide rates in U.S. counties that experienced a natural disaster increased 23% in the 3 years after compared with the 3 years prior. And according to the CDC, suicide rates have increased among Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders by nearly 16% from 2021 to 2022, so before the fires. Do we know why this is, and then what can be done to try and help with suicide prevention?
I think, with the natural disasters part, there's so much loss that we're so busy working on getting our basic needs met initially that it may take time for the grief and the loss and the overwhelm to really hit us. So that's one of the reasons that I would hypothesize that time frame 3 years after the disaster happens. It's unclear why the mental health in Hawaiians has increased in that time prior to the fire, but Hawaii's changed a lot. Tourism has taken over, jobs have been harder to find, so some of that could increase there too. And what Hawaiians do that's really beautiful is they believe in community and they lean into that as a way to get some support that they might need.
So one Native Hawaiian therapist told NBC many Hawaiians are not inclined to seek counseling because they can't find a therapist therapist who comes from the same culture or at least understands their community's history. We're a little tight on time here, but what is some of the outreach that can be done to try and close this gap?
So I think that is a hard thing. And so it's learning the community. It's really, that's an important thing. And the other thing that's really important is for people to look at what they can do, use their community, lean on one another, go back to things that bring joy to them. And as they build that, their mental health really will improve.
All right, Dr. Jennifer Hartstein, thank you so much for joining us on this topic. We appreciate it. And if you or anyone you know is struggling, you can call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988.
All right, well, coming up, offer on the table.
We're going to break down the latest proposal from movie studios to the SAG-AFTRA union as that Hollywood actors strike continues to rumble on. That's next.
Welcome back. The Actors Union on strike says it received a proposal from Hollywood studios on Saturday that they're calling their last, best, and final offer.
SAG-AFTRA's negotiating committee responded that it's reviewing it and considering our response within the context of the critical issues addressed in our proposals. This latest offer came after an hour-long video call with both sides. The strike now entering its 116th day. That's the longest film and TV work stoppage in the union's history. Entertainment journalist and pop culture expert Brian Balthazar joins us now. Brian, good to have you with us. So the studios, that includes our parent company, NBC Universal, have warned that unless a deal is reached this week, it's going to be impossible for broadcasters to create half a season of scripted television, which is the best we can hope for right now. Where do things stand this morning?
Right. So, well, it looks like this last, best, and final terminology is probably the most serious we've seen them give, and probably that they mean it this time, as I think that's what they're trying to say. Some of the points that they're looking at is one in particular is residuals. The union really wants to have a percentage of the revenue of streaming success. And what the studios are offering is double the residual if a show makes it into the top performers. So, you know, we've all watched Netflix and see the top 10 list, how things are trending. They want to use the metrics of how a show is performing to determine the scale of that residual. And that's the one I think that the union is going to have to make some compromising on. I don't think they're going to get a percentage of streamers' performance as far as the gross revenue. Next, we have a wage increase. That could be the highest that we've seen for them in 4 decades. So that's a good thing. They've built in some AI protections, including consent and compensation rules. We're not going to see an end to AI. So now it's about building a framework that the union can live with. And of course, there's improvements to pension and health. But it's really the residuals that's holding everything back right now.
Brian, so of course our audience remembers that there was also this writer's strike, and I think that, you know, that began in July, but then was resolved a little over a month ago, and people might have thought, hey, maybe the actors will be close behind. Of course, though, this has still continued to leave thousands out of work for close to 6 months now. Did any part of the writer's deal help out here or make any of those specific points get a little bit further along in negotiations?
I think a little bit. If anything, I think the studios are pleased to see that they have momentum on projects just from the writing stages alone, that they can get these things going. And it may have been a little bit of a nudge for the studios to say, hey, without the performers, we can't do anything with this writing that we have now. So it may get a little bit more of an incentive for everyone to come to the table and really come to an agreement.
And Brian, I mean, clearly this is taking a huge toll on the U.S. economy, specifically the California economy. Yeah. How much worse could this get if we don't see a deal soon?
Well, if you take a look at this last weekend, well, you can see right there that $6 billion. I mean, that's a huge. The estimated cost of California economy, $3 billion. We're seeing it in the box office right now. This past weekend, we had one of the lowest box office performances of the year because we did not have a major film come out. We had only ones that had already been out there. So we're seeing that in the box office. Dune, they held off on the second part of Dune because they wanted to have the performers to promote it because that could generate hundreds of millions of dollars, but they held on it. So therefore, we had a box office of about just over 58 million. That is not good. And we're also seeing a drop in subscribers to streaming services. People are really looking at their wallets right now, their bank accounts, and they're dropping streamers that they don't want or don't need or aren't providing the content that they're looking for. And without new content coming in, more and more of that is going to happen.
All right, Brian Balthazar, thank you so much.
Some more union news now with financial headlines. The UAW releasing details from its tentative contract agreement with GM.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning to you. Yeah, so the UAW says General Motors plans to invest roughly $13 billion in its U.S. operations by the spring of 2028. Now, the union releasing details of its tentative contract agreement with GM after local leaders approved the pact, and it must still be ratified by a majority of the union's 46,000 members with the automaker. And just like the deals with Ford and Stellantis, GM's contract includes a 25% pay hike, bonuses, and other enhanced benefits. The Washington Post naming William Lewis, the former publisher of the Wall Street Journal, as its new CEO and publisher. He will replace Patty Stonecipher, who became interim CEO in June. Lewis's appointment comes as the media industry is struggling with a sluggish ad market, low trust by the public in news, and threats from AI that could change how people find and consume information. The Washington Post is owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. Detroit ranks as the best city for local holiday shoppers. A new study from Bankrate finds the Motor City ranks high in categories such as affordability, offering the lowest prices, and the second lowest sales tax rate among other major metro areas, tied with Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Now, it also has among the highest number of retail stores per capita. Boston and Philly are next on the list, followed by Charlotte and Baltimore. Seattle ranks at the very bottom, guys.
All right. Savannah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, coding behind bars.
We've got an inside look at the new prison program that's aiming to give inmates the skills they need for a digital world. That's next. Over the weekend, organizers of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade tested out this year's new balloon. Snoopy fans are going to get to see a Beagle Scout version with Woodstock sitting on the brim of his hat. Some other characters, Po from Kung Fu Panda, a new version of the Pillsbury Doughboy, and Monkey D. Luffy from the popular anime One Piece, now a show on Netflix. This year's parade, it's actually going to be 30 minutes longer than usual. It's going to start at 8:30 a.m. with a performance by John Batiste, and as we reported last week, music icon Cher will be sharing a new holiday song. You can watch it all on NBC and Peacock, of course.
We are both so excited for Cher.
Yes.
And it's a holiday season. We love this. Thanks, Joe. Well, finally this morning, a program run by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology is hoping to give inmates a second chance at life after prison. One of the tools organizers are giving them is the ability to code. NBC News Now Daily anchor Morgan Radford has their story.
Correctional officers, jail cells, and JavaScript. That's the combination happening here at the Central Detention Facility in Washington, D.C., thanks to a program called Brave Behind Bars.
You learned how to do this. How long?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
It's a 12-week course that brings PhD candidates from MIT to jails and prisons, teaching inmates programming, digital literacy, and how to make their own websites.
So that all comes from that code you were just writing?
Yes, ma'am. The goal, say co-founders Martin Nisser and Marissa Gates, is to make sure inmates are ready for the real world when they get out.
Why computers and coding?
These kind of skills are really kind of paramount for fostering success in the modern workplace.
What about people who say, these people have committed offenses? This is not where our time or our money should be going. What do you say?
You could imagine that the people who are being released might be your neighbor. Would you rather have that person have just spent years behind the wall without any support, or would you rather that they challenged themselves, learned marketable skills? When you look at it that way, it's like, well, why not?
Since it was founded in 2020, the program has expanded to 6 correctional facilities across the eastern United States, helping more than 120 inmates in total so far. Antoine White has been in federal prison for nearly 3 decades. He's been taking this coding class in his last days before getting released.
Do you hope to bring any of these skills with you?
Yes, I hope to continue to learn about coding. Hopefully, man, in the future, we get a high-paying job.
Federal data shows more than 40% of incarcerated people lack a high school diploma, more than double the rate for other U.S. adults. But education programs like this have been shown to decrease recidivism by as much as 43%. And with nearly 2 million people in jails and prisons across the United States, it's a program with room to grow.
You shouldn't judge a person for what he or she did or didn't do. People make mistakes in life. They shouldn't stop them from learning. If you're not willing to help him when you're trying to help yourself, you'll never see nothing better.
A lesson in ones and zeros that could someday lead to a second chance.
Well, our thanks to Morgan Radford for that report. While all the jails and prisons offering these classes are partnered with a college or university, and the students who finish the program will get college credit once they've served their time and they're released. Be one step closer to that full college degree.
Program that make a difference for a lot of people, especially
Absolutely.
for those who are leaving prison.
Definitely. And what a great skill to have at this point.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Stay with us. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on a Monday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, another deadly weekend of violence in the Middle East. Israel now says it's effectively split Gaza in two after that ground offensive reached the territory's coastline. It comes amid a push by the Biden administration to sway Israel toward a humanitarian pause in the fighting. Communications in Gaza are back online this morning after local officials reported yet another total blackout over the weekend. We're covering it all in just a moment. Also this morning, former President Trump slated to take the stand today here in New York. It is a huge moment in that high-profile civil fraud trial, which could decide the fate of his family's business empire. What we're expecting when he enters the courtroom. Plus, actor Matthew Perry laid to rest over the weekend in a private ceremony with his closest friends saying their final goodbyes. And after yesterday's New York City Marathon, we're going to bring you a conversation with two trailblazing women. Their top times, just a fraction of their lengthy and inspiring resumes. Fun time to be in New York yesterday, just walking around the neighborhood. You could just hear cheering everywhere you went.
I know. I missed a lot of it flying back home from a trip this weekend, but it's always such a good New York City day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So much
Inspiring,
fun.
too. We're going to begin with this hour with the latest in Gaza. Israeli military officials now say the region has been effectively severed in two as troops surround Gaza City ahead of a forceful invasion.
The escalation comes after a weekend of international protests calling for a ceasefire from Israel. But Prime Minister Netanyahu refused, saying no negotiations will be made until Hamas releases the hostages. NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel has the details.
The Israeli military said it carried out a strong attack against Gaza City overnight and is pushing deeper into Gaza in its ongoing fight against Hamas. But a U.S. diplomat and our team in Gaza said that hundreds of thousands of civilians remain in Gaza City. Israel this morning is on a search and destroy mission in Gaza, with tanks and troops having encircled Gaza City, one of the most densely populated places on earth, and riddled with Hamas tunnels. The Israeli military claims to have left a corridor open for civilians to escape Gaza City for the south.
We want to fight against Hamas. We don't want to fight the civilian population.
But this morning, our team inside Gaza City tells us hundreds of thousands of people remain in Gaza City. Our team say Palestinians are staying despite the extreme dangers for three reasons. Gazans don't trust Israeli promises of a safe passage. They believe southern Gaza isn't safe either, with deadly airstrikes continuing all across the Gaza Strip this weekend. And there's a principle. Palestinians believe Israel's real goal is to drive them out of the Gaza Strip for good, pushing them into the Egyptian desert and erasing part of their homeland. Multiple witnesses tell us there are no Hamas checkpoints keeping Gazans in place. Anger in the region is growing against the United States, Israel's main backer. In Turkey, protesters tried to storm a NATO base housing U.S. troops on Sunday. Secretary Blinken in Turkey this morning, continuing the most intense American shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East in decades. A second U.S. aircraft carrier strike group has arrived in the eastern Mediterranean, a warning to Iran not to escalate further. Israel is in no mood to compromise. Israelis are comparing the October 7th massacre, when Hamas gunmen massacred 1,400 Israelis and took at least 240 hostages, as their 9/11. Veteran journalist Gideon Levy says the voices of Israelis worried where all this is going are being drowned out.
After 9/11, the United States made many angry mistakes. Is Israel doing the same thing?
For sure, anger motivates Israel now more than anything else. Anger, humiliation, and this desire to take revenge. Where do the... Okay, we'll smash Hamas, which I doubt it, but let's say we crash Hamas. And then what? Who will replace Hamas?
Moderate voices in Gaza are also increasingly rare, and Palestinians there don't have the option of criticizing Hamas, especially now.
All right, Richard, thank you so much. Back here in the States, thousands joined rallies in many cities, some calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, others supporting Israel. Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence agencies continue to monitor violent threats on college campuses. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk takes a closer look.
Good morning. Israel is nearly a month into its war with Hamas, and the Israeli government expects the battle to continue for many more weeks, despite growing global calls for a ceasefire. And this weekend, from coast to coast, people made their voices heard. Nearly a month into the war between Israel and Hamas, passions rising here at home, with demonstrations in multiple U.S. cities.
Bring them home! Bring them home!
During Sunday's New York City Marathon, pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian supporters holding dueling protests.
Look, 12-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid, all of these people, none of them should be held hostage.
In Washington Saturday, a rally in support of Palestinians brought tens of thousands to the nation's capital.
Long live Palestine!
Crowds marched to the White House gates. According to police, the demonstration was largely peaceful. But after dark, some protesters shook the White House fences and began climbing them, leaving red handprints symbolizing blood smeared on the brick and vandalizing nearby statues. In a statement, the U.S. Secret Service said the attempted gate trespass was handled without incident, adding there were no arrests. In California this morning, police say they are investigating a possible hate crime after an Arab Muslim Stanford student was hit by a car on campus and sent to the hospital. Abdul Wahab Omira says he was walking to class Friday afternoon when a driver hit him and yelled, "F you and your people," as he sped off. The student saying in a statement that Stanford downplayed the severity. The university called the incident profoundly disturbing. It comes as concerns grow about a sharp rise in anti-Semitism across the country and on college campuses. This weekend, former President Barack Obama weighing in on the complexities of the war.
What Hamas did was horrific, and there's no justification for it. And what is also true is that the occupation and what's happening to Palestinians is unbearable. You have to take in the whole truth. And you then have to admit nobody's hands are clean.
In a message to the campus at Stanford community after the incident, the university said Stanford is continuing to work to provide a safe and secure campus environment in the context of the heightened tensions related to the events in Israel and Gaza. This includes additional security that has been deployed at key locations on campus, the statement read. Back to you.
All right, Stephanie, thank you.
Well, now to the ongoing civil fraud trial involving former President Trump and his family's organization. Trump is set to take the stand today in his own defense in the $250 million lawsuit brought on by the New York Attorney General's office. Trump and his family are accused of inflating the value of their assets to get better rates on loans. They have all denied any wrongdoing in the case. MSNBC anchor Lindsay Reiser joins us now from outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Hey, Lindsay, good morning. So a lot of evidence has been presented so far in this trial. We've also seen many people on the stand, including Trump's adult sons, Eric and Don Jr. Walk us through what we're expecting to hear from the former president himself today and how valuable this testimony will be.
And he has been to court before. He has said that he'd rather be on the campaign trail instead of having to be here. Today is really the only day he has to be here. He is being compelled to testify right now as part of the state's case. So he is a state's witness. And remember, in this case, he has already been deposed twice, once in August of 2022 and once in April of 2023. And in August, he had actually taken the fifth more than 440 times, according to sources. Now, in April, in that 2023 deposition, he said he was asked to meet your obligation of presenting information in accounting in accordance with GAAP, General Accepted Accounting Principles. We hear a lot of that in this case. Was former CFO Alan Weisselberg responsible? And he said I would say yes. So that is along the lines of some of what we can hear today, that he was involved in other things and wasn't involved in the nitty-gritty of appraisals, of calculating the valuations that would be in those conditions of financial statement that would be sent to banks. The AG is also likely going to ask about Michael Cohen's testimony, in which he said that the former president kind of talks like a mob boss. He directs without directly telling you, and that he had testified that he and Alan Weisselberg were directed by Trump to inflate his values. Essentially, this is the net worth that I want, and they would reverse engineer the values as a result. The former president has said multiple times he's never inflated his net worth. In fact, he hasn't included his most valuable asset, which is his brand. The Attorney General's office has said that's an intangible item, that also wasn't included in the financial statements. And also that Trump and, of course, his adult sons, Alan Weisselberg, Jeffrey McConney, Trump Organization controller, all inflated the values, changing the methodology used to value properties from year to year. And just also really quickly, we're going to hear likely a lot about some of his flagship properties, Trump Tower, Mar-a-Lago. Remember, the apartment in Trump Tower, that triplex, was stated as being somewhere around 30,000 square feet when it's not even 11,000 square feet. That would obviously change the valuation a lot. And then Mar-a-Lago, its classification as being possible for residential development use or just as a private club. It is just a private club, of course, Trump's residence as well, but that would have a very different valuation as well, Savannah.
So, Lindsay, on Friday, let's also talk about what happened with the gag order. The judge in this trial expanded that to include Trump's lawyers following what are being called inappropriate remarks made about the law clerk in the courtroom. What kind of an impact could this have, as the trial is expected to go on for at least another month or so?
This judge has already fined the former president twice for violating that partial gag order, in which no parties can make public comments or post about his clerk. Well, in court last week, there were a lot of fireworks because Chris Kise, Trump's attorney, brought up the clerk again. There was some note passing, and he was saying that had an air of impropriety or bias. The judge, furious at that, at one point pounding the table, saying he has an unfettered right to talk to his law clerk, who provides counsel for him, advice. In fact, he's contending that is the principal role of a law clerk in the state of New York. And so you're right, he did expand that gag order. He's saying now all counsel are prohibited from making any public statements in or out of court that refer to any confidential communications between him and his staff. He's told the court that since his trial has begun, his office has gotten lots of threats. And so we will, of course, have to wait and see what happens today. If that gag order, that now expanded gag order, is violated, the judge has threatened serious sanctions, Savannah.
All right, Lindsay, thank you so much. And now let's get a look at your morning news now. Weather, it's an unseasonably warm start of the week with temperatures 10 to 20 degrees above average.
We'll take it. Joining us now, meteorologist Michelle Grossman with the forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. I know after last week when it was so cold, many of us well above normal for this time of year. Some spots, yeah, like you said, 20 degrees above normal. We're looking at 90s in the southwest, 80s in the south central states, even near 70 degrees in parts of the Midwest. So that's the big weather story today. We're also watching a few soggy spots. The Pacific Northwest, we have a series of storms that keep moving onshore. We're going to see one move in once again today. We're looking at the chance for some heavy rain in spots, especially along the coast of the Pacific Northwest. Could see some higher mountain snow as well. Really gusty winds. Winds could gust up to 60 miles per hour. And we have a little system that's moving through the northern plains, the upper Midwest, the upper Great Lakes. That's going to bring some rain and even some light accumulating snow as well. That might make for a little bit of tricky travel. Otherwise, we're dry throughout most of the southern part of the nation into the eastern part, and that's where we're going to see the warmth as well. As we head towards Wednesday, we're looking at snow showers still in the Rockies, and then we're looking at rain once again. So it's sort of the same spots. The Pacific Northwest will dry out a bit on Wednesday, which is good news. But we're looking at rain falling throughout portions of the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes once again. Could see some snow mixing in as well. That record warmth continues on Wednesday. Things start to change a bit, though. We get closer to normal in some spots, especially in parts of the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, into parts of New England. We're going to be much cooler than we are Monday and Tuesday. Friday, once again, we're looking at rain overspreading into the Northeast to kick off the weekend. And that's going to go all the way down to portions of the south central states. There's that cold front. Could see some heavy rain developing along the Gulf Coast into portions of Texas as well. Another storm system moves onshore in the Pacific Northwest. That's going to bring more rain. It's going to bring more snow, and even a little more snow, too, in the upper Midwest and the upper Great Lakes, the UP of Michigan especially. But let's talk about that warmth, because we're looking at temperatures well above normal for this time of year. Notice these little lines here. That's indicating a southerly flow. So that's bringing in warmer air from the southwest into the south central states, all the way to parts of the northwest and also the Midwest. Chicago today, 70 degrees. That's 19 degrees above average for this time of year. 70s in Denver and Santa Fe, also in Kansas City, into the 80s in Houston, Abilene, Little Rock, 80 degrees. That's 15 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. We'll keep this warmth in place tomorrow. We're looking at temperatures still well above normal, still 10 to 20 degrees above what is likely for this time of year. Breaking records today, breaking records tomorrow. Atlanta, 78 degrees tomorrow, 67 in New York City tomorrow. That's 11 degrees above average. And Dallas, you are warm too. In the 80s, that's about 15 degrees above what is expected for this time of year. Then we get back to reality, but still not bad for this time of year in New York City, kind of fall and crisp. 54 on Wednesday into the 50s Thursday and Friday. So let's talk about radar because we are watching some rain falling right now in the Pacific Northwest. You notice that green, that is the rain. A little lightning strikes too. That's showing us the power that these storms have. And we also have some higher elevation snow. Also heavy rain falling throughout portions of the upper Great Lakes. That's where you see those brighter colors, especially reds and oranges. And as we zoom in a little closer here, this is going to be the theme throughout the day. A very Monday, soggy forecast. We're looking at Washington, Oregon, into Northern California, into the Northern Rockies. Very beneficial rain. We need it here, but it's been soggy for a few days. It's going to be soggy today and then soggy later on this week as a series of storms move onshore. That the atmospheric river that moves onshore, and that's bringing a lot of moisture and also really gusty winds. We're going to see it dissipate a bit tomorrow. A few scattered rain and snow showers lingering in portions of the Northern Rockies, but really gusty winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. That could cause some damage, some power outages as the grounds are a little bit wet, but there is all that rain in the Washington, Oregon area where you see those brighter colors. So it's kind of soggy there, soggy in the Great Lakes too.
It was lovely to not have a soggy weekend
Wasn't
here.
it so nice? I mean, it felt weird, right?
Exactly.
I just carried my umbrella anyway.
Just for fun.
Just in case. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, friends and family gathered over the weekend to say goodbye to actor Matthew Perry. This comes as we're learning more about how Perry's legacy will be honored. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz joins us now from Los Angeles with more here. Hey, Liz, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Well, the exact cause of Matthew Perry's death is still being investigated. Those who knew him best are getting the chance to honor the beloved actor as they gather for a private funeral for one of their very best friends.
I may just sit here and have my cake all day. Just sit here in the hallway and eat my...
As fans celebrate the moments that made us laugh, over the weekend, an intimate and emotional farewell for Matthew Perry. Loved ones attended a private funeral Friday for the actor in Los Angeles, including all 5 of Perry's Friends co-stars, according to People magazine. The service took place at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, located less than a mile from Warner Brothers Studios, where Perry filmed the iconic sitcom and played the charmingly cheeky Chandler Bing.
Please, could she be more out of my league? Ross, back me up here.
He can never get a woman like that in a million years.
Thank you, buddy.
The show's 10 seasons are still in syndication, and we're reportedly bringing in significant residuals for Perry every year. Those payments will continue even after his death and will go to Perry's estate. Now, as fans pay tribute to his life and legacy, the actor's advocacy is in the spotlight.
If somebody comes up to me and says, I can't stop drinking, can you help me? I can say yes and follow up and do it. When I die, I don't want friends to be the first thing that's mentioned. I want that to be the first thing that's mentioned.
Perry's family hoping to make good on that wish by establishing the Matthew Perry Foundation to help others struggling with the disease of addiction. Adding the effort will be guided by Perry's own words and experiences and driven by his passion for making a difference in as many lives as possible. And as far as the ongoing investigation into a cause of death, the LA County Medical Examiner is waiting to release the autopsy until the toxicology results are completed. Then the full report will be finalized and released. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Liz Kreutz, thank you so much.
We got more to come on this hour of morning news now, including an emotional return to Cincinnati for the Bills' Damar Hamlin. It came 10 months after he collapsed on the field in front of football fans all across America. But this visit wasn't just about the game. We'll explain.
But first, after the break, the father of the suspected Highland Park parade shooter has his day in court today. More on the charges against him and what we could expect from his son's upcoming trial. That's all up next. Welcome back. Today, the trial of the father of the suspect in the 2022 4th of July Highland Park shooting is set to begin.
The father is charged with 7 counts of reckless conduct for his role in helping his son obtain a gun license, even after he had allegedly made violent threats. The son has pleaded not guilty to the charges he faces. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us now with the latest. So, Maggie, good morning. What can we expect today?
So, guys, we can expect today basically the beginning of what may seem like a speedy trial. This is a bench trial. There is no jury. And we've already been told by prosecutors last week that this could wrap up by midweek. That being said, the judge has said he may not rule immediately. But just to kind of recap, that's Robert Crimo Jr. that you're seeing there, the father of Robert Crimo III, the third being the alleged shooter in the Highland Park, the suburban Chicago 4th of July parade massacre. 7 people killed, more than dozens, I should say, wounded. You see video of the scene there. Basically, again, the key element here is police say in 2019, so a couple of years prior to this, Robert Crimo Jr., the father, prosecutors say, signed his son's gun ownership card, which he had to do because his son was younger than 21, couldn't get one on his own. And prosecutors say he signed it, helping his son get legal access to guns, despite the fact that he knew, that the family knew, according to investigators, that Crimo III, the son, the alleged shooter, had expressed violent and suicidal thoughts. So what we have now are 7 felony charges of reckless conduct, saying that action, helping his son get access to guns, contributed to or helped lead to the massacre last summer, guys. That's what we're examining here.
Maggie, walk us through what we know at this point about how prosecutors are looking to go about proving that in this trial.
Yeah, so at the time, you'll remember in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, it came out that police had been to the Crimo house a couple of times. And it's since come out that basically the alleged shooter's younger brother had called them to the home, saying that his older brother, Crimo III, had expressed violent suicidal thoughts. So what prosecutors have said they're going to be looking at, and what the judge in this bench trial is going to be looking for, is what did the father know about his son's state of mind? When did he know it, specific to helping him get access to those guns? And then this is key, guys. What would a reasonable person have done in that situation? So that's what we're going to be seeing here, sort of argued back and forth between the prosecution and the defense. But also keep in mind, we haven't had the trial tied to the shooter yet, the alleged shooter, the son in this case. As you said, he's pleaded not guilty. So they'll also have to prove, first and foremost, that Robert Crimo III actually committed the shooting, and then get into the role his father may have played. So it's a complicated process here for sure.
Definitely. And Maggie, I know some experts believe this could really set an important precedent when it comes to mass shootings and really crime in general. Tell us more about that.
It could. I mean, keep in mind, the Crimo III, the son in this case, the alleged shooter, was 19 when prosecutors say his father signed that gun ownership card. He was not a minor. He was 21 when he committed the shooting. And yet here we are, where we have a father charged, facing felony charges for the actions of his son. And a lot of legal experts have told us this could set an important precedent when it comes to parents, potentially loved ones, getting charged when their loved one, when their child commits a violent act. Obviously, mass shootings top of mind here in the U.S. Also, a lot of conversations about red flags that were missed, which we know is a key conversation coming out a lot of mass shootings here in America, and that we will hear a lot about going into this latest case of this mass shooting more than a year ago here. Guys.
All right. Maggie Vespa, thank you so much.
Now for international headlines, starting with news from the soccer world, where an English Premier League star is grabbing attention for his goal celebration.
NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter joins us. Hey, Molly, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. That's right. Starting right here in the UK, his goal celebration and how he actually used that moment. So Liverpool star footballer Luis Diaz scored a major goal over the weekend, and he took the opportunity to speak to the press about his father. He wore a shirt that read "Freedom for Papa." Both of Diaz's parents were kidnapped by a guerrilla group last weekend in a small Colombian town. His mother has been rescued, and he is now advocating for the immediate release of his father. Now, moving to Nepal, aid started arriving in villages today in the northwest mountains after it was flattened by a very strong earthquake over the weekend. The magnitude 5.6 struck Friday night, killing 157 people, injuring scores of people, and leaving thousands homeless. Now, food, supplies, tents, medicines were all arriving today. Everything is only accessible by foot. And finally, moving Prince William tries out a sport I don't think he learned in school growing up in the UK. He took to the waters in Singapore for a morning of dragon boating today, all ahead of the big Earthshot Awards tomorrow, aimed at promoting solutions to environmental threats. He joined athletes from the British Dragons Club on the Kalang River. He looked pretty good out there, guys. I'm sure he's done some rowing in his history, but I'm not sure if he's ever hit a dragon boat before.
Yeah, that looks like quite the workout. My
Sure
goodness.
does.
All right, Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, some frightening moments for passengers on board a JetBlue flight before it even took to the skies.
Why one type of battery is now causing concern among flyers and federal officials. Stick around. This is Morning News Now. Abortion will be a key issue in next year's presidential election, and an early test comes at the ballot box tomorrow. Voters in Ohio will decide on whether to guarantee the right to an abortion in the state constitution. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Goss spoke with Republican women in the suburbs of Columbus about how the issue impacts how they vote.
However, abortion may be prohibited after.
92-year-old Joan Lawrence has always been in favor of abortion rights.
I think it's up to the individual, not the government, to decide what to do about a pregnancy.
She's also a lifelong Republican who served in the Ohio legislature.
It's not a partisan issue. It really isn't. And Republicans are making it trying to make it a partisan issue.
Other Republican women from the reliably red Columbus suburbs also feel that way. In August, they voted against a Republican effort to make changing the state constitution harder. Many viewed that special election as an attempt to undermine the vote Tuesday, when Ohio will decide whether to guarantee access to abortion in the state constitution.
I thought it was kind of sneaky that it was being placed last minute on a special election.
Lisa Knapp, a registered Republican, believes in low taxes and small government. She also says women's bodies are their own business.
So that's a big Republican ideal, is that the government stays out of your business. But in this particular issue, they are getting in your business.
Do you think that the abortion issue has been good politically for the Republican
Party?
Party?
Been horrible.
It is far from certain how next week's abortion vote in Ohio will go. But either way, some Republicans believe the party is focused on the wrong issue.
I feel like they're missing a lot of the big ones, a lot of the struggles that people have in day-to-day life. I mean, inflation is really bad. Food prices.
Erica, a mom of 4 young boys, is opposed to abortion, but voted against the Republican measure last summer, which she felt was an overreach.
Good job, bud.
She's frustrated with her party.
I don't care about the party lines. I care about truth and honesty and following my principles.
Do you feel like the Republican Party right now is sort of at odds with itself?
Definitely, definitely.
I just feel like
Lisa has similar concerns about the future of the party heading into the 2024 presidential election. Do you think abortion is an issue that will direct who you choose in the primaries?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If someone was like, hey, I want to impose a 6-week ban, I would never vote for that person. I think the abortion issue is just a lot bigger than most people have realized it is, for Republicans.
On Tuesday, the state goes to the polls. The message it sends will be felt nationwide. Stephanie Goss, NBC News, Delaware County, Ohio.
Well, crew and passengers on a JetBlue flight extinguished a backpack fire while passengers were still boarding. The FAA has reported that it's just one of many incidents involving exploding lithium-ion batteries on board. NBC's Tom Costello has more.
It happened as the JetBlue flight was still boarding. Flight attendants and passengers poured water on Jimmy Levy's backpack after a battery or charger caught fire.
A giant explosion came, and the ball of fire, which was my backpack, came right towards my face. I was shocked.
JetBlue says its crew immediately responded and addressed the situation. It comes as the FAA reports stunning data. So far this year, 60 onboard battery incidents through early October, more than one every week. In March, a Spirit Airlines flight made an emergency landing after a passenger's device caught fire. 10 passengers to area hospitals.
The fire is out, and it's in the lab.
In February, an emergency landing in San Diego after a battery pack caught fire. The problem, lithium batteries can overheat, going into what's called thermal runaway. It's why the FAA doesn't allow batteries in checked luggage.
If a fire breaks out in the cargo hold,
It's something you can't see because it's beneath the floor, and that could have catastrophic consequences because you have no access to try to put it out.
And lithium-ion batteries are in everything from phones to tablets, vape pens to laptops, hundreds on every plane, also leading to home fires with serious injuries.
Our thanks to Tom Costello for that report. And also, it's an important warning as we head into the busy holiday travel season where you might be traveling with lithium-ion devices or receiving one as a gift. Keep that in mind.
Coming up, it was an emotional return to Cincinnati for Damar Hamlin over the weekend.
Yeah, the city where just 10 months ago he suffered that terrifying on-field cardiac arrest that left football fans devastated. But this time around, his visit wasn't just about the game. We will explain after this.
We're back with a closer look at a lawsuit that centers on social media and the possible harmful effects it can have on teens. Meta, Facebook and Instagram's parent company, was sued last month by dozens of state attorneys general. They allege that over the last decade, Meta has, quote, profoundly altered the psychological and social realities of a generation of young Americans. Meta denies those claims. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin reports.
12-year-old Melanie Goldstein has been scrolling through her own Instagram account since she was 11. You're supposed to be 13 to sign up.
I put that I was born in the 2000s instead of 2011.
So you kind of lied to get on Instagram, huh?
Yeah.
Every day, Melanie says she spends at least 30 minutes on Instagram and up to 5 hours on all social media apps.
I'm not addicted, but I do find myself going on it probably every day.
But other teens are addicted, according to a new lawsuit filed last week against Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. A group of 42 attorneys general sued, accusing the company of intentionally using addictive features aimed at getting kids and teens hooked.
They use that word, addicting, internally.
Their investigation began in 2021.
I believe Facebook's products harm children.
After Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen leaked internal research indicating the company knew its platforms pose mental health risks to young people.
The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people.
The lawsuit accuses Meta of creating a business model focused on maximizing the time that young users spend on its platforms, designing features like algorithms, likes, alerts, and filters, the suit says, to keep kids online.
Designing it to make it much faster and cleaner as well.
Meta says the claims are not true. Adding in a statement, we're disappointed that instead of working productively with companies across the industry to create clear, age-appropriate standards for the many apps teens use, the attorneys general have chosen this path. Earlier this year, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a report calling youth mental health the defining public health issue of our time, as up to 95% of teens between the ages of 13 and 17 say they use a social media platform, with about a third saying they engage almost constantly.
The young brain is very susceptible to addiction.
Furthermore, rates of teenage depression, especially in girls, has skyrocketed in the past decade. A CDC study found 1 in 5 teens had experienced at least one episode of major depression.
We see a variety of mental health concerns, including depression and anxiety, a whole variety and a whole host of comparison disorders where they are comparing themselves to other people.
A spokesperson for Meta notes they have already introduced more than 30 tools to help parents and teens manage screen time and schedule breaks, something Melanie's mom Pamela uses, but she still has reservations.
With Melanie, I'm particularly concerned about body images. I don't want her to aspire to look like many of the images that she sees online. I know there's ways that I could just look better.
What are some of those ways?
I could wear more makeup and straighten my hair.
But despite those feelings, Melanie says the pros of social media far outweigh the cons.
At this point, the horse is out of the barn, and I have to trust my kids and that they'll make the right decisions.
Our thanks to Dana Griffin for that report. Last year, a group of attorneys general announced a separate investigation into TikTok. That investigation is ongoing.
Let's get you some financial headlines now. A new, cheaper Tesla model is reportedly in the works.
CNBC's Savannah Henao joins us with that and other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, so Tesla will reportedly build a new vehicle at its factory near Berlin that will sell for under $27,000. And the move coming as competition ramps up to produce more affordable electric vehicles. Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced the plan to employees last week when he visited the German factory, though he didn't say when production would start, and Tesla isn't commenting. Currently, the company's cheapest car is the Model 3, which starts at about $46,000. Elon Musk's artificial intelligence startup xAI unveiled a new chatbot this weekend called Grok, and it's modeled after the robot in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and is designed to answer questions with a bit of sarcasm. Grok is still being tested, but xAI says it could eventually be a better product than ChatGPT, and Musk says it will be available to a select group of X premium users. And women are gaining ground in the ranks of the highest paying jobs, but they still lag behind men. A study from the Pew Research Center shows women now make up 35% of workers in the top 10 highest paid occupations. That's up from 13% in 1980, and they've increased their presence in nearly all the major positions, including physicians, lawyers, and pharmacists. Workers in the top 10 typically earn more than $100,000 a year. That's more than twice the national average, guys. So some good news, but more progress for sure needs to be made.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. Savannah, thank you so much.
Coming up, 2 stories of triumph over adversity at this year's New York City Marathon.
Our conversation with a pair of trailblazing women who are redefining success 1 mile at a time. That's up next. Welcome back. Taylor Swift's re-recorded version of her album 1989 has just become the biggest debut of her career. 1989, Taylor's version, as it's called, sold just under 1.7 million copies in the week ending November 2nd. So that is around 400,000 more than the original 1989 sold when it was released back in 2014. It's also the biggest debut on the Billboard 200 chart by any artist since Adele's 25, which was 8 years ago. Swifties have noted that this is her 13th #1 album. That is her lucky number. Obviously, congrats to her. You know, I contributed to this, Joe, all the Taylor things.
Did you buy, how many times did you buy it?
I know, right? Well, I do often buy her albums to give her that support, but then I stream them a lot of times because it's easier in certain settings. So, you know, I try to do what I can.
You're pitching in?
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Savannah. 4 years after a biking accident left a spinal surgeon paralyzed, he's returning to work in a different way with a newfound purpose. Here's NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson.
In just one moment, a carefree bike race with friends 4 years ago changed Dr. Rex Marco's life forever.
I heard a crack, and I just driven over my handlebars and onto the ground, head first, helmet first.
A friend and fellow biker rushed to his side.
I asked him to touch my foot and tell me if it was moving, and I couldn't feel him. And I knew in that moment that there was less than 5% chance that I would ever walk again, or that I would ever operate again, or that I would ever hold my unborn child.
Dr. Marco spent the next few weeks in and out of the ICU and was on a ventilator for 3 months.
Okay, shrug him up, Dr. Marco.
He spent years in rehab, finding a way to live this new life with quadriplegia.
It is the hardest thing that's ever happened to me.
When did you decide, I'm going to go back to work?
I always knew I was going back to work. There was no doubt in my mind.
This year, Dr. Marco returned to work full-time with a new mission, teaching the next generation of doctors how to better care for patients with spinal cord injuries.
Those moments of apparent lack of empathy and lack of sympathy and lack of compassion were difficult.
Sharing with them the importance of hope.
The nurse told my son, "Your dad's never going to walk again." And that's a hopeless statement. And so hopefully you can give your patients hope.
How do you feel like this will impact the way you think about treating patients?
It'll remind me that my patients are human,
just like me. I'm treating a human, not a condition, not a disease.
Whenever you have that difficult patient, they're expressing their frustrations.
Dr. Marco is working with patients again, too, including 20-year-old Thane Stark, who was paralyzed 4 months ago after jumping into the ocean.
What has the impact of that relationship been for you?
It has been absolutely reassuring.
Do you feel like he gives you hope?
I do, absolutely.
Dr. Marco's work now taking on new meaning.
I feel more connected to my fellow human being. And I feel like there's a bigger, deeper message. It is different because I can touch more lives now.
Transforming lives, part of his own journey toward healing.
Our thanks to Priscilla Thompson for that inspiring story.
Oh, wow, exactly. So inspiring. Well, so is this next story. It was a historic 2023 New York Marathon on Sunday, with tens of thousands of athletes participating in the race. In his first ever New York City Marathon, Temirat Tola from Ethiopia won the men's elite division in style by breaking the all-time course record by 8 seconds. That was his first World Marathon major title.
And the women's field came down to the final stretch, but Helen Obiri from Kenya took first place. The reigning Boston Marathon champion, now the first woman to win 2 races in the same year since 1989. We're excited to say that joining us now are the top 2 American finishers in the women's wheelchair race for the New York City Marathon. Susanna Scaroni was the first-placed American and also placed 3rd overall yesterday in the category. She's a 3-time Paralympian, 2-time Paralympic medalist. She was also last year's New York City Marathon champion. Also, Tatiana McFadden placed 6th overall, was the 2nd fastest American. She is a 6-time Paralympian and 20-time Paralympic medalist. My goodness.
20 medals. Oh, my goodness. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you very much for getting up after obviously an exhausting day. We appreciate you being here. Tatiana, I will start with you. Just tell us about your experience yesterday and how you are feeling today, the day after.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for having us on. Yesterday was a historical day for making the team, for punching our ticket to the Paris Marathon next year. So that was ultimately the biggest goal, and I'm so excited that I've made that achievement. It's been really quite an exciting year. We had world championships where I actually focused on sprinting events, and I took home medals in the 100, 400, and 800 meters. And so to make the transition to the marathon was something really special, and it's always honoring to represent the Team USA in my 6th Paralympic Games.
That is so cool. Susanna, what was it like being back at the New York City Marathon after winning it just last year?
Hey, again, also thank you for having me here today. It was such a great experience to be here yesterday. New York Roadrunners always does an amazing job of, making the athletes feel so excited to race on one of the hardest courses on the planet. And so we had wonderful weather, not even any wind on the Verrazano Bridge, which is crazy. So, we were welcomed for the perfect day, and I love this course, and it was an awesome pleasure to be here.
It was a beautiful New York City day yesterday. Perfect. I mean, I've never run a marathon. I've never participated in anything like this. But you can imagine. I can imagine if I were to take that on, that's the kind of day I would have wanted. Tatiana, you just mentioned the fact that you kind of focused on sprinting, winning 3 world championship medals in sprinting events this year. Of course, also, as we've mentioned, making the Olympic team. What has this year meant to you to have all these accomplishments stacked up?
This year has been, I set certain goals in place, and I've definitely achieved them. And so I'm hoping to make history next year, actually. I'm chasing a former Paralympian, Chantal Petitclerc from Canada. She's won 22 Paralympic medals, so she's the all-time greatest Paralympian track and field. And so I'm just 2 medals away from that. And I'm hoping to be competing in 6 events next year to qualify. So the marathon, it was number 1 that I qualified in. So hopefully I can qualify in the 100, the 400, the 800, 15, 5, and the 4x1 relay.
All right, let's talk about the international stage. It's something both of you know well. You are now the first 2 of 4 American athletes to qualify for the Paralympics next year in Paris. First of all, just how cool is it that you get to go to Paris for all this? But Susanna, I'm going to ask you first, What's next for you between now and then, and how much are you looking forward to the Paralympics?
Yeah, that's a great question. In our sport, as Todd just alluded to, she's doing multiple events. We have a very stacked racing calendar. My next major event will be the Tokyo Marathon in March, which will begin the next major marathon series. And so we focus on the major marathon series, as well as, immediately transitioning back to the track to also hopefully represent the USA in the track next summer in Paris.
Absolutely. Tatiana, so what goes into maybe some of the mental aspect of this, the mental preparations for competing at that level, especially as you just mentioned, you've got a specific goal now with just kind of trying to chase that 2 more medals. What does that mean that it's like for you to prepare?
It's tough, especially when you're focusing on such a variety amount of races, from the 100 all the way to the marathon. I just take it training by training session, and I set small goals within the week. And of course, we look at the whole year calendar and what I want to achieve. And we really break that down from month to month, and then just week by week, and then just day by day, and really having that open communication, with the coach, with the nutritionist, with your strength and conditioning coach, and just trying to put everything together and just see what I need to work on. I feel like, life is about learning, and same with, with what we do. And so I'm learning at every race, and I'm learning every single training. And that's what keeps me so excited. It's just, I'm learning all the time. The sport is evolving so much. So it's a really, really great time to be an athlete.
It's so neat. I feel like that's a lesson we can all take, just set weekly goals to kind of get there. And then look at that, always 20 medals later. Yeah. Tatiana, Susanna, thank you both so very much for joining us. Congratulations on yesterday, and good luck in Paris. We hope to keep talking to you throughout the process.
Thank you.
It's going to do it for this hour. Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Stay with us.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.